Have Seattleites gone soft on crime? The reason we're asking this is lately, Seattle's seen a lot of crime. A lot of cities have seen a lot of crime increase, specifically like break-ins, home burglaries. We got people yanking ATMs out of stores. We've got weed stores being broken into because there's lots of cash and they can't put their money in the federal banking system. So ridiculous. We've got so many crazy things going on here. But one of the consistent things is that the police department and people that are involved in public safety are saying is if somebody breaks into your house, run out the back door. So the question is, hey, wait a minute. What about defending your place? That's what we're talking about today. Say you got a gun at home. Should you use that gun? That's kind of what we're talking about today. Let's get into it. Before we do, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies. I read news for reasonable people. It's what we're doing. So this is Dave Ross. He's a guy in 𝐏𝐞𝐬𝐬 News Radio. And his question is, have Seattleites gone soft on crime? Good question. Were we already soft? Some would say so. Seattle used to be kind of a man's man city, right? Bunch of lumberjacks, bunch of loggers, some fishermen, and some other just, that whole flannel vest and work boots and hat and just, redneck tough. That's kind of what Seattle used to be. Not anymore, right? Just got a bunch of people who are like, it's okay. It's all right. Go have some avocado toast and, let everybody be. It's okay. Just do your thing. It's all right. Decriminalize everything. It'll be all good. It's not how Seattle was. It's not the Pacific Northwest. Portland, same thing. Tough logging towns. And if you think about Portland and Seattle as being tough now, you're like, what? That's not the case. Go to downtown Seattle now and see if you can find a logger. Skid Row came from a term because they would literally skid the logs down to the waterfront in Seattle because it's so steep you could do that. Just these big muddy streets that are now our main arterials to downtown. They just pull those logs along. Skid Row. That's where all the crazy stuff happened, right? Still does. Seattle Police Department recently came out with some advice on what to do if a burglar breaks in while you're at home. The advice is to get out ASAP. Just abandon your home. You can replace goods in your home. You can't replace your own life or the life of your loved ones. That's good advice. But is it just kind of, running to the hills? Is that what we should be doing? Or should we be taking a little bit more of a stand? I know most of you are going to say, no, shoot him. I know you're going to say that. And I don't fully disagree. However, you're probably going to be the one going to jail. You take somebody down, doesn't have a gun, you're probably going to go to jail. So it wrecks your life as well, defending your own castle, because that's just how 2022 works, right? Now you might say, well, I'm in a state where I can do that. Well, so am I. And I'm telling you, you go down that road. So one of my things is baseball bat. Yeah, baseball bat. I do have a baseball bat handy. I do have 2 shotguns handy. I've got a Remington 870 Express, and I've got a Benelli. It's got an expanded number of shell. I don't know. I can't remember. Both, hunting guns-ish. The Benelli, that's just a cool gun. And do I have those loaded and ready to rock and roll at all times? No, but about as close as I can. I can't quite get to that, though I want to have a loaded shotgun in the house at all times. Live by myself, so I don't, I don't have any concerns about me waking up and shooting myself in the foot. But if I still had kids in the house, I probably wouldn't. If I had a spouse in the house, I just feel more comfortable with a gun with shells nearby, knowing it's just me. And if somebody else comes in, well, I'm just going to shoot them. So that's kind of how I handle that. But the baseball bat, that is probably more likely what I would be able to grab. I wear contacts. I am legally blind without vision enhancing whatever it is. I cannot drive without contacts. So it's one of those things where Bill Burr does a bit where he's like, hey, wait a minute. I got to go get my shells in the gun case, or the gun in the gun case over there, and shells out of the safe over here, and he's mimicking running around his house while the burglar's chasing him while he's trying to get stuff out. That's kind of how I feel like it would be for me if somebody broke in and I didn't have my glasses on or my contacts in. I would just be like, hey, wait a minute. I got to find my glasses, and then I will come shoot you. I feel like that's how it would go. I don't really know. I pretend not to think about it because I don't want to have to admit that at some point in time we'll probably get broken into. But that's a reality in today's society. Break-ins are happening all the time, and it sucks. So to have to think about that, we're not in, Mayberry anymore. We're not in Narnia anymore. We don't know if they're under the influence. We don't know a lot of things, Jennifer Danner said. Jennifer Danner is a crime prevention coordinator, and she says you should have an escape plan for a burglary just as you would for a fire. Get the F out of your own home. Just let them take stuff. That's not really where I'm at. But then again, I value my own life. You know what I mean? So maybe I do pick up that shotgun. Maybe. Just put a couple of shells in and see what happens. That chamber around or two. Just see what happens. I don't know. What if someone tries to come in the front door? What is my safety plan? Oh, well, baseball bat's pretty close to my front door. My safety plan is getting the heck out the back door. All right. Yeah. One round or two through the glass front door. And, I think they get the impact of the warning shot. And I got to replace the front door. That would suck. It's all brand new. What if the back door is not an option? I've got a back door, but it's off of a deck. And then I have to run down some stairs. And then I'm in my backyard, which is fenced. So is that really an option? I'm not really sure. Now I might need to consider a window, Danner continued. I am not jumping out a window of my own home. I'm going the other way, whatever it is there, unless the guy's got a gun. If the guy's got a gun, I might consider a window, but that's not going to work out well for me. I'm like 12 feet off the ground on my second floor. And I don't think so. I'd probably pull a hammy, right? I mean, wouldn't be good. So her advice is to retreat, but isn't her advice just adding to the wussification of Seattle? Yes, but it's also probably decent advice from the standpoint, so many of these people doing the break-ins, they're doing it because they're on some crazy drugs. And who knows what they're capable of. We see some horrific crimes going on in Seattle. It doesn't take a lot to figure out, this isn't going the direction that we need it to as a society. We've got people doing some stuff that makes them act in a way. The new meth, just makes people literally nutso. And they do crazy stuff. So if you got one of those coming into your house because they're looking to steal something they can sell for 10, 15, 20 bucks, get their next fix, they don't really care because their life isn't worth much to them anyway, because they're in a position where they're literally breaking into somebody's house to steal something for 10, 15, 20 bucks so they can go get their next hit. They're living in the moment. You know what I mean? And they don't really care. So is this adding to the wussification of Seattle? Yes and no. I think we already entered wussification in Seattle years ago. Just like, it's okay. Decriminalize all. It's all right. We'll be good. Don't worry about us. We're fine. Seattle was built by lumberjacks, fishermen, and people who believed in fighting for what was theirs. And now it's run and hide as quick as you can. It's so true. It's so true. I've talked before about Paul Newman in the logging movie. And for those of you who told me what the name of the movie was, I can't remember. I remember seeing that movie as a kid. Paul Newman, they're cutting down some enormous old growth forest in Portland, in Oregon somewhere back in the 70s. And one of the guys gets stuck to a log and the tide is coming up in the river where whatever body of water it is, and the guy's going to drown. So they literally stick a flag to the log and they know that they'll look for this flagged log. It'll have this dude's body on it when they catch it down the river. Just some hardcore stuff like that. You're not going to make it, so I got to stick this flag on this log. Yeah, that was reality back then. Have we wussified from that? Absolutely. Now our biggest concern is, oh God, my hands aren't manicured, so I can't work this computer machine thing here very well. That's kind of where we sit, right? And now it's run and hide as quick as you can. That's our own Dory Monson. This is by Dave Ross. He's talking about Dory Monson. He's another entity on 𝐏𝐸, who pointed out that Washington is a stand your ground state. I mean, you can have a gun. Somebody enters your house. Yeah. And yes, the founders of Seattle were tougher. Definitely. Although, to be fair, those lumberjacks and fishermen kind of took over land that was already being used by other people. So there might be a little pushback about who had the right to self-defense in those days. It's true. We pushed the Native Americans out, right? We did. I mean, we just did. That's being raisable. You can't avoid that. Times are different now. Here we are. Reparations, all that stuff. Got to talk about, we have a lot of folks here that at the beginning of like big events, like at the beginning of a hockey match at Climate Pledge Arena, they'll discuss, we're recognizing we're on the sovereign lands of whatever, the Duwamish. Duwamish was a big, huge tribe that was in Seattle. And, arguably we probably cleared out the Key Arena, which is now Climate Pledge Arena, from Native American Indians, because that's who was here before us. So you've got that going on. So now we're talking about, hey, the lumberjacks and fishermen, they were tougher, and we should be able to defend our land, which we took from others. All right. Yep, that happened. But when it comes to our current crime wave, you could certainly argue that the advice to run and hide is like surrendering to the bad guys. It does feel that way a little bit, right? But whatever they're taking, you work a little bit harder and you reproduce it. Don't just give it away, but your life is worth way more. Your stuff is not worth that much. I was at a house yesterday, a lead from the podcast, somebody that watches the podcast. They're relocating their dad, and went and met with the gentleman who's going to be relocating. He's going to move with his family, and podcast listener didn't know anybody else. And so reached out to us. And so we went down and took a look at the house yesterday, and we're, kind of talking about used stuff, especially if it's older, doesn't have any value. Used stuff of any kind just doesn't have a lot of value. So what's your life worth versus what's your stuff worth? All right. Yeah, I'll probably give a hall pass. Now, if you're still in my truck, that's a little different story, right? But they're not going to get far because gas mileage in my truck is horrible. And there's that, right? So this is what Dave Ross, the author of this article, is saying. So here's what I think. I think your number one duty, if you walk in on a burglar, is to keep yourself alive, period. That kind of leaves it open. Well, what if I have a gun and I shoot him? Then you might suffer the consequences. You might not. But do you want to roll those dice? Because your stuff can be replaced, you cannot. I do agree with that. Nobody's last words should be, well, at least I defended the Rolex. No, that's true. Because nobody really cares. Stuff, whatever, But at the same time, I would like the burglars to think that everybody is a Dory Monson listener, meaning defend your turf. Washington is a stand your ground state. Sure doesn't seem that way, does it? Yeah, doesn't. Therefore, you have your escape plan ready like the cops recommend, but you also put an NRA sticker in your window and a big old American flag on the garage. One of the reasons I'm reading this story is I got a big old American flag at Costco last weekend, and I'm putting it up on the house. I've been walking around the house and trying to figure out where I'm going to put it. I got some neighbors in my cul-de-sac. Yeah, they're not going to be pleased. They're going to be like, oh, geez, do we have a nut job over there? Yeah, probably. But, going to have a flag. So that's what we're doing. And whenever you're outside doing yard work where passerbyers can see you, have your radio on 𝐏𝐸 between 12 and 3 turned up just a little louder than necessary. Talking about tuning into somebody who believes in defending your castle. I'm okay with that. Or you can tune in to News for Reasonable People at any time. Turn that shit up to 11. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.